Welcome to the episode number 1 of the Nextflix podcast on the digital trends of financial services. I'm David Derrier, head of operations at Nexel, very first Salesforce partner in Europe since 2002. 2020 was a very special year for businesses, and we saw that financial services were not an exception. All of a sudden, the lockdown forced banks and financial institutions to allow and facilitate home office, which was usually forbidden for security reasons. And according to Handelszeitung and The Guardian, banks like HSBC bet on home office on the long run, having 70% of call center agents working remotely, while planning to reach office space by 40% worldwide for economical reasons. More than a simple adjustment variable, this is a pure strategic move. We can then ask ourselves the question, is security becoming less of a risk today for financial institutions? And to talk about security, I'm very happy to welcome Ashraf Tanguy, program architect at Salesforce and a seasoned financial services expert. Hi, Ashraf. Thanks for being with us today.
Hi, David. Thank you for having me.
So, the first question that I would like to ask you is about the relationship between technology and financial services. Are they close enemies or brother in arms? Is it a strange relationship sometimes, and it's not clear about the way they cope together?
Yes, indeed. Financial services companies, if you think about it, have always really heavily relied on technology. Think about self-service, something we do every day, like ATM or online banking. But technology really used to be a mere cost factor for them, kind of a necessary evil. Until let's say a few decades back, when we started to see the arrival of social media, power of data, and then fintech. There was a moment there where basically we all thought, okay, this is the end of banking or an insurance. We're going to see a new era. But then over the last few years, we just saw clearly that it didn't happen. And really what really stands out is that for banks and insurances, there is an important factor there, which is trust. And this is what really survived throughout those decades. So now today, if you ask me, technology for these financial institutions is just a vector for this trust. It's a way for those companies to reach out even better than before, to really strengthen the relation between banks and their clients. In areas like wealth management or insurance, technology is an asset that enables that company to differentiate themselves in the market and focus on the core of their business.
Yeah, but if we talk about trust, we heard a lot in the past, I do not trust cloud solutions and so on. So how did you see the perception of cloud solutions evolving over the year?
Okay, now if you look at how these banks and insurances had a relation specifically to the cloud, that's a different story, right? Let's look at what really makes a bank or insurance like move or want to change. So today there is really two strong forces that are driving those institutions. In my opinion, is regulatory frameworks and customer demand. So it is I would say for me, a clear handicap if a bank or insurer is not capable to provide a simple self-service app or front end to a customer, because simply this generation is not the same as the one before, and the next one will be even worse. So yes, in the beginning, if we come back, a few years back, there was a lot of apprehension and I would say even fear regarding the cloud. Specifically, when we say cloud, we mean public cloud. But now, in the last 5 years, I see more and more organizations starting to really consider and even taking the step to working with cloud providers. And this makes me just sometimes ask, what makes a company choose to do that and go for it, and others are still not able to take that step. I think the perception of cloud solutions is now more and more moving away from, yes, it's an option, we can do it whenever we want, to really kind of a fear of missing out. It's if you are today sitting in a financial institution listening to this podcast, and you are wondering, okay, am I missing something by not being on a cloud solutions? The probable answer is yes, because there is a lot of advantage in doing that, and that's why we already have. I speak now as for Salesforce. We already have quite a few financial institutions in Switzerland that are putting their trust on in our services.
And I think, jumping on what you said, if we have a look back, cloud solutions started with free solutions initially in our private life, and free means cheap, means unsafe. So I think maybe the perception came from that. When you're using something free, you say, okay, why will I use that for professional reasons? And
right.
What do you think is the main fear around cloud solution? What are people afraid of when it comes to cloud? Is it about losing control or any other aspects?
Yeah, this is actually the core of it. I mean, I started working with companies in this sector in financial services, and really the obvious aspect is I felt towards many interactions is that it's always about one or two things that are key. One is losing control over your data. So I think that's really one of the main things that comes out when people are speaking about cloud solutions. And then the second one, which is also as important, it's about reputational risk. So either you as an individual who is responsible for the decision to go to cloud, or also the institution itself in the market. Those are, I think, two of the main factors. And usually there is something behind that. To me, the perception that I've built is we usually are talking also about maturity. So if you look at a company that has always done business in a certain way, has always has its data on a data center that is owned, sometimes in the same building, and then suddenly you're presented with a different model where you're going to use a service that is not managed by your people, by your IT. This is definitely something new, and of course it raises a bit of emotion there. It's like, well, how am I going to do that? How am I going to trust another party to manage my services and my data? And then this is maybe a trend more on the middle-sized companies, big companies in Swiss terms, and of course small medium business. And I'm excluding from this, multinationals. When we speak about multinationals, they are usually already ahead. So I know that many of our clients are also multinationals, so they have already done that and took the step. And I think it's maybe also a thing of resources, right? So yeah, I mean, this is in short what I would say that the main fears are around cloud solutions.
Yeah, and there's one thing that I personally noticed in a few projects I did in financial services is the notion of personal relationships, relationship management, data, my data, the ownership of the data. Because in some organizations, you hire relationship managers because of their portfolio, because of the clients, and cloud is not that tangible. And we notice sometimes that people and RMs were afraid of putting their data on solutions that was on the cloud because their data, which was their main asset, was not actually in their pocket, in their USB key. And that was, a mixed feeling because organization wanted to move ahead, move forward, look quite far away. But on the other hand, some people inside the organizations were really not feeling comfortable about these things, and they were afraid of losing some of their added value. Is that something that you not do?
Yes, definitely. I think we've met the same people there, David. So it's definitely something that comes up as well. Maybe one thing that is important to ask here to the audience or to the listeners is, why are you considering a cloud solution? And this is a key question, because I would say that the most successful customers I have seen, they have understood that moving to the cloud is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to get on a new technology, be able to unlock something that you wouldn't be able to do on with your own developers, with your own resources. You basically can rely on resources from another company. Companies with tens of thousands of people that can actually focus on building software. This is the starting point, right?
Yeah.
And if you have that clear, then the rest would kind of come from it. So obviously, I agree with you. This is definitely a matter of why are you doing it, and you can always find such a remarks like about data and ownership.
Yeah. Now let me play devil's advocate and ask you a question, because we hear quite a lot in financial services. Oh, my data needs to be stored in Switzerland. There's no other option. I need to have things on premise. So, two questions in one, because Salesforce does not have servers in Switzerland. So first, is this statement about data storage true? And where do you think that comes from? I mean, this perception of having more data locally.
Yeah. So, by the way, this is usually the number one question once we enter the room. So it is something we always have to deal with when we are talking to insurances and banks, financial institutions, and surprisingly, sometimes even companies that are not even regulated by the FINMA. So yes, so this is something we deal with on a daily basis. And it's to answer the second part, where it comes from, it really comes from a legacy framework in Switzerland, where you can find previous circulars in our in the Swiss Swiss regulatory framework, where it was made very difficult to use cloud providers. So I'm not going to go into specifics, but I think our audience will know that in previous circulars, this was actually something that we had found. So it was more difficult. But today, obviously, this went away. And to answer the main question, is it a must to store data in Switzerland? And here, of course, I'm not a lawyer. You're not a lawyer, so this is not an interpretation of the law or anything. But what we just simply by going and looking on the documentation that all of the cloud providers have put out there now, that have done the effort to help those banks and insurances understand how to work with them, it is really obvious that the regulatory framework in Switzerland focuses more on the financial institutions itself. Are they ready to do business in the cloud? Do they manage, things like business continuity? Do they put in place the technical measures to protect the data from being, managed or mismanaged by either the third-party company or by an internal employee as well? Is there segregation of duties once you put all your data in an application, and then you have one admin who is super powerful in the bank? Something you need to be aware of. So this is where I think the framework for compliance is going to, and I don't think it's relevant to speak about where is the data, because it's with today's technology and today's tools, it is obvious that we can't expect that all the data that we create is all sitting in a data center in a cellar somewhere. This is unrealistic. So obviously this is kind of my own experience gathered over the years. And I hope that, as I said, there is now a lot of documentation available throughout all the cloud providers out there. So no need to name any specific vendor, but all of them now are doing the effort to provide you with this type of quick starter on how to manage your journey to go to the cloud, because it's fantastic what you can unlock when you start doing that.
Yeah, and I remember once I had a meeting with a big bank in Switzerland, and they absolutely wanted to have data stored locally. I'm not going to drop names. And when we asked the question, why do you want or why do you need to have data stored locally? The first answers were, from a legal perspective, we need to do this and that. And then when challenging, we noticed that the main reason was that the CEO of the bank had decided to have everything on premise in Switzerland. And that was more an emotional aspect than a legal requirement. And that's something that is, still very emotional. And,
and a quick comment here is that the bank or banks and insurance can always decide that for them, this is something that they want to put in their internal policies. This is completely fine. We have seen that it is possible to find it, but in general, it's not about what internal policies do you have. It's about what is it that right or with regard to the compliance, and that's what I think the angle we're focusing on today.
Yeah, absolutely. In probably 80% of the situations, we see it's more related to the policies, to the processes, to the strategy, more than the law and the regulations. So we talked about the trust, security, data storage, and so on. You've been working at Salesforce for several years now. Would you say that security is really a challenge with leading solutions like Salesforce?
Yeah, let's define it a little bit more. So when we speak, when we look at how Salesforce, for example, manages this, so there is a real paradigm shift when you work with the cloud providers. Security is nothing less than a feature that has to be developed, that has to grow, that has to evolve. So if you look at what we do, security is a feature or a product where we have a roadmap, where we invest, and what all our clients then benefit from. So we really treat it differently than you would have your typical bank treating security. Security, if we speak really about the mechanism you can develop around your platform or product, typically you would want to secure access to your servers. You want to put some roles and profiles. You want to make sure that whoever have access to something is logged and has kind of can only see data that he needs, etc., etc. And what we did in general, also what cloud solutions do is that we really go and look at our platform, and then we develop security as a product where we can really find out, okay, what do we need to add here to actually answer to the market. And an example for that is a few years back, Salesforce did not have an encryption solution where you could bring your own key to the platform. And within a couple of releases, and that's basically very quick at Salesforce, we were able to bring that as a security feature. And now all our clients basically have been able then to benefit from that. So you can encrypt your data with your own key. You can hold that key and basically control and keep control of your data. So this is just one angle. Another angle on security is that, of course, we as a platform, but in general, again, speaking about cloud solutions, if you have a platform which is going to host and operates data for multiple clients, there is obviously a lot more scrutiny, audits, penetration testing, and real industrialization of that security topic. And basically, it is, I would say, virtually impossible to have a single client have the same amount of resources to put on security as a big cloud provider, for example. It is just not realistic to have the same resources put in the topic. So yeah, these are some of the things that would make me kind of very openly say that no, security is actually for us a feature, an asset, and of course together, if you know Salesforce, you know that trust as well is one of our number one value actually, and it is something we just do as a business. I mean, this is our business and how we live.
Yeah, so security is more an opportunity than a challenge, actually. So we've talked a lot about the evolutions over the years and so on. So how do you see the future of cloud solutions in financial services? Trends, ideas? What's your feeling about that?
Well, I've spent actually quite a few years now in my career on financial services, and I'm really excited about the future. I think Switzerland, being one of the hotspots in FinServ, really will keep attracting a lot of talent. So this is a great, place to be, a great opportunity for all the employers as well. I mean, if you look at insurances, the banks, they are big employers in Switzerland, and if you look at how talent is going now, I mean, more and more people are getting trained on the cloud technology in general, like Salesforce and others. So this is becoming kind of really, I would say, a market where you can really find not only the technology but also the expertise to transform your business. So I would say this is the start of a great story. I would not be surprised that in few years, maybe 3 to 5 years, that's maybe majority of Swiss companies will be harmonizing their approach to the cloud. So why not having at least maybe a third or maybe even a half of the workload managed through one of the cloud providers? For me, this is definitely a possibility, because I see that more and more our clients are coming and asking for this, and not only Salesforce. I mean, other cloud providers in general are having the same trend. So I think financial services is going to thrive on this type of solutions. And I think Switzerland specifically will see a huge will reap huge benefits from the approach that we are seeing now. All of this, of course, within the framework of the compliance and the regulatory organ here in Switzerland, which is also kind of working with us. We're working with those cloud providers to enable our financial institutions to be able to reach this goal. So, yeah.
Yes, the future looks quite promising and exciting, even more with Salesforce, actually. So we look forward to seeing what happens next. Okay, so time flies. Thank you very much, Ashraf, for this enlightening discussion. That was really great having you here today.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure for me as well.
And we hope that you listeners, you enjoy this Next Fix podcast as well. And do stay tuned, because the next episode will be dedicated to digital marketing and financial services. So another very interesting topic. So thank you very much. Have a nice day, and bye-bye.